It's your boy Zay-P, Zay-P the I am. I am that I am, as you are that you are, for we are all that we are. From the individual to the many, from the many comes the all, and the all is one. So today, your boy's back with a brand new video. I wanted to get in and talk a little bit about something that's been weighing on my heart, and something that I've gotten questions about in the past. Today, let's get into what's like being black and spiritual. If it's your first time here, be sure to like, subscribe, follow. If you connect with me over on Instagram or YouTube at Zay-P, the I am, and you can follow me on Facebook. I've been sitting with my higher self. I've been connecting with the I am. I've been kind of connecting with God, praying to God, so to speak, just to gain clarity and idea that there is more, and that there's more to this journey and to this entire experience that we're having than what meets the eye. Juxtaposition between being black and being spiritual. By being spiritual, I am talking about having that understanding of that connection to God, having that understanding and knowing that there is something more and greater. We can call it God, we can call it source, we can call it divine ones, we can call them gods, we can call them creator beings. You can see it as one singular substance, or you can see it as multiples. And in that understanding, being able to tap into that, seeing how that energy unfolds and feeds into all the different areas of one's life. This is what spirit is. This is what spirituality is about. Spirituality is about understanding that that energy flows in of all things. And with that, I'm a very spiritual person. Clearly, I'm a spiritual being. Clearly, at the same time, I am a black man. I am a young black man. I live in New York City. I grew up in the quote-unquote hood, however you want to perceive that. The rolls in the concrete, so to speak. And I like that picture, that idea of the beauty of nature and the beauty of life unfolding and still blossoming in spite of the obstacles. Image. So I do liken and akin myself to that because I recognize, again, that idea of spirit. I recognize that energy that has flowed into my life and that has provided me with blessings. All of that comes from this divine nature within that I've been blessed enough to tap into. So with that, we have two different experiences between a spiritual experience and the black experience, especially in here in Western culture, but we'll see this throughout the world, right? Where races in general, what we have broken down divisively and kind of labeled each other based off of the hues and pigmentations in our skin tones, we've made into these really separated cultural experiences. The judgments come, and all of the ways we can hurt, and the maculations and the manipulations over the generations. This has led to a specific and distinct experience for black people, regardless of where you're at. Just like this has led to a separate and distinct experience for women versus men, right? The different cultures, the different ways that we separate, that we divide, creates a distinct and separate experience from those populations or from those peoples that we've separated ourselves from. And so with that, here in the States, having the skin complexion that I have, in the skin that I'm in, I have a very distinct experience. And the only reason why I do this video is because, of course, it being Black History Month, this is just the perfect time, but also just to kind of come together and connect with all various folks to understand that the basic commonality and the bottom line between all of us being the same, being one, is that we are the collective that is mankind. We are just one aspect or one expression of source. And until we can all come together on that page, unified, and this is what I talk a lot about in my videos, in my channels, is this idea that we need to come together, that all is one. But until we do, we are not maximizing, we are not embodying, we are not embracing all that we could be. We are not truly expressing all that source, all of that the divine could be. And that is fine. There's no right or wrong to this entire experience. But this is an evolutionary process. As we grow, we become more aware and we become more unified through that awareness. That said, until that day happens, both individually and collectively, there will always be a distinct experience. There is a lot of division. There has been a lot of disharmony, racial disharmony. There have been many injustices of the past. There have been many trials and tribulations, so to speak. And when you come up in these different communities and within these different collectives, especially within the tribal systems that we create as men and women, when I say as men, I mean mankind, but womankind, all of that, it's all the same stuff, labels. But when we come into these tribal conditions and these tribal units that we create and these separate experiences, that division causes a splinter in many. I've been one who's evolved enough that I'm coming back to that place of love, that I've come back to knowing the value of that co-creation and collaboration. But then being part of this particular group and this particular environment and energy and the tribal mentalities and the loyalties and the ways our value systems are created, you come to get the ideas and come to develop loyalties. You come to develop cultures that this distinct culture is part of the fabric of who I am, right? Part of that the distinct culture of Black people is part of the fabric of who I, Zay, the individual is. Regardless of the I am part, which is within all of us, Zay, the individual, is fed by the Black experience. And the Black experience, especially when it comes to spirit, has been dampened throughout history. Much as a lot of the Black experience, a lot of this unevenness within our culture due to race, caused by such division, has dampened many experiences for us. So the idea of spirituality, when we think of the ability to grow and the ability, especially the ability to grow spirit, Black people, when we arrived here in this particular country, in this particular region, much of those spiritual religions were stripped away, and different religions were placed upon them, and they came up kind of being broken into these religions and into these specific mindsets. And not to say religions are wrong or invalid or anything else, but just to say the separation. There's a division between a culture and a peoples who've been indoctrinated into a specific train of thought and those who have empowered themselves and taken on that train of thought on their own. And the ways that religion, text, and these things have been manipulated over the years to empower some, disempower others, things of that nature, within the Black experience, it has been very repressive. There has been a lot of injustices that have been swept under the rug based off of religious or moral principle. And that said, that's a shame because at the same time, those being empowered by the same religion have different interpretations, have different understandings, which has been prevented or not so much shared with this separate population. And so again, we come back to these uneven, distinct experiences that are separate from each other. And while different populations have been open to embracing and evolving and growing into newer trains of thought, newer ideologies, newer understandings, the repressive nature within the Black experience has unfortunately left a lot of us limited in how much we even get exposed to, let alone in how much we can take in for ourselves. Because if the exposure is not there, then there's a slower growth rate. There's a slower growth progression. That's been my experience with the Black experience in general. There are many things that we're behind about. We get to the party late, right? We find out about these things late. We learn about whether it's economics, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's spirituality, many of these things there's been such a fight, an uphill fight, just to get on even footing, that by the time we get to the top of the hill, the next hill has already been conquered, and it's still more hill for us to get up. And so we've been behind, basically, and we need to find ways to catch up. And in that, I've been blessed that I've been open-minded enough, and I've been exposed to enough that I've been able to enhance and grow and connect more. But in truth, I still have the loyalty to my tribe. And so carrying that loyalty to my tribe, I do advocate for certain things. There are certain things like the idea of reparations. I do not advocate for reparations because I feel owed or entitled to anything. I honestly very much do share in what some might call GOP values. I do share in some ideas of the individual, in the power of the individual, because I do know the divine lives within. So we're all capable of much more than we even believe. I also know, as somebody who suffers with disabilities, how much more I am capable than what the world would allow me. So I do advocate for that. At the same time, because of my experiences, I also do advocate for some social causes, right? There is a need for a system that helps with the people with disabilities, with veterans coming home from wars, with our elderly, right? These are socialist ideas. And so the idea that it's all needs to be separate is completely, again, divisive and not useful for a collective that we are all pooled together and working together, right? Our elderly should not suffer when they spent generations holding up our economy, holding up our culture. And now that they're older, they're treated as though they're expendable. That's horrific. Peoples with disabilities are not useless and are going undervalued and undermined, right? And are being overlooked and being shuttered away. And while maybe their bodies may not be working, their minds are still sharp. And maybe while their minds may not be the sharpest, their bodies may be stronger than ours. And there are ways and uses that they could be of value in our society. But unfortunately, we shutter them away. We don't even want to look at them because it's uncomfortable. And then we start to fear everything else that's different from us. So the other races will come in. If you're Asian or white and you're looking at black people as, oh my gosh, those people are violent or whatever. If you're black and you're looking at white people and just saying they're automatically racist and because their ancestors did such and such, I don't really believe or resonate with any of that. Our power is in the here and now. What is happening in the here and now? What has happened in the past has been horrific. It has been horrific. And there are certain ways we have been set back. But I also know that the longer we sit around whining and being victims of it, the longer we do not overcome, the longer we do not get up that hill. But when we do take our steps and take ownership and responsibility for our lives, we get up on our feet and we start to build the momentum towards what we are trying to create. But that is on an individual perspective, and collectively, it is much more difficult. Right? And without advocates, without partners to make things happen, that becomes a more difficult process. And see, this is why unity is needed. This is why the black and the spiritual all needs to come together, but there's still a divide. And until that divide is met, until those ideas are met, it's my job to kind of be in that place, in that border, in that 0 point, that stillness between the black experience and the spiritual experience, between black peoples and all other peoples, to bring the commonalities together. And so back to an idea like the reparations, I do not advocate for reparations because I feel black people are owed anything, but I do advocate it because I know black people feel this way. And to me, and this is from a very human viewpoint, when we are giving out trillions of dollars to insane ideas and programs, and when we've given reparations to wars and to other peoples in wars that really did not even affect home, Why would we not give such type of monies to our veterans? Why would we not give it to black people or to other people to get up on their feet, to pull themselves out a little bit, especially when it's a contractual obligation? there was already a doctrine, a court ordered doctrine that said this is old, right? And so as long as people continue to feel victimized and continue to feel slighted, they can't move forward. And so I advocate for something like a reparations, because if this is going to help our brother, our sister, our fellow man move forward, why not help them move forward? So that once they can move forward, they can let go of all of the traumas and the hurts of the past. We have less excuses to hold on to. But until that is made right, it becomes very difficult for black peoples to feel any kind of way that there will be trust, that there could be trust. It becomes very difficult for black people to feel that justice can be served. When we look out into the streets and we see happening on camera all the time, peoples of color being killed, it becomes very difficult to believe that there will be justice served in the court system. Idea is, if you want a unified world, if you want a unified country, if you just want peoples to be unified, then why would you not take the steps and make the efforts to allow everybody to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel represented? And so my experience between being black and being spiritual has been one where I advocate in duality to myself, because I do advocate for, those who go through the black experiences, those who are going through disabled experiences, those who are going through disenfranchised experiences, those who feel victimized, those who feel unjust. At the same time, I advocate for sovereignty and for the truth that the divine spirit lives in us all, and the idea that we can all create and manifest greater lives for ourselves than we can envision ourselves, and the idea that God, the universe, source is in our corners, in our favor. I know these things to be true, but I also know that the need for the collective, we all need to rise together. Otherwise, no one does. Regardless of how evolved I become, I can only get but so far without my brothers and sisters. And if the black experience is so divergent from the rest of the experience, then I need to see the black experience equivalent. And then I can see the entire thing lift up. And so that's my job. Even though at times I might feel in juxtaposition to myself, the truth of the matter is I am always aligned with the highest truth. And the highest truth that we are all one. That the divine lives in me. That the divine lives in you. And that we can create a better world, a better tomorrow. That we all can uplift ourselves individually and collectively. And that a rising tide does rise all boats. But I am also aware of the realities of our 3D experience, and that we are not all there yet, and that there's still so much fear and so much division and so much chaos working against us. It becomes hard to cross those lines, to go from division to coalition, to collaborating, to co-creation. But that is the exact invitation that Spirit calls for all of us now, because regardless of whatever you believe, whether you believe angels are going to descend down from heaven, whether you believe aliens are going to come from another star system, whether you believe Jesus Christ, this specific individual, will ride down on a chariot of fire at the end of the day, it is us. It is us. We are here. We are what is here. We are who is here. We are the heroes that we're waiting for. All of those that we keep looking out for the world to save us, they're all waiting for us to get off our asses and get it together. So at the end of the day, it takes us as a collective to pull together. And that means starting to heal the rifts and divisions in our collective. And it's not just the Black experience. And it's not just the disabled experience. And it's not just the woman experience. There's so much division, and there's so much torn, separated energies that's working against us all. We all need to come together to lift ourselves up. But again, until we can do that within ourselves, it becomes harder to do that as a collective. So I invite you again and again and again to take up your truth, to tap into the divine nature that you are, that is inherently within, to look around you and to recognize yourself, the self, not you, the little, the self that is in you, that you see every time you look in the mirror, that thing inside you that knows there is more. To look outside at your brothers and sisters and recognize that is there too. Recognize that that is in fact you. And when we can come together, when you can get over your own fears and judgments and desires to separate against anything that's unfamiliar, and you can come back together to a place where you can build yourself up and you can be okay seeing those others around you get built up, and know that it is not working against you. Know that if you see all boats rising, that your boat is surely rising. Then we can begin to up-level and become the heroes and change this world to that which we see forth in the future, to that which we've always prayed for. We are the gods and goddesses of our experience. The God, the source, the creator has given us all the tools and the power that we need. We need within ourselves individually to heal those fragmented, segmented pieces. And then we need to look around in our society and recognize all of those broken, fragmented, segmented pieces that was within us. That is all of the things that's broken and fragmented and segmented in our world. And once we heal those pieces within us, we can begin to heal those within the world. And until we do, then we still have to play these separate, divisive wars. And so that's why sometimes some of my videos may seem like I'm advocating for one group or another, or one particular issue or another from a personal perspective. But the truth behind it always will be there, because we are all one. And regardless of my experience within the Black experience, regardless of my spiritual experience, regardless of my disability experience or any other freaking experience, we are all one. And so this is the lessons that I have been coming around on as I've grown through the Black experience, in my spiritual experiences, to the experience of one, the experience of being whole, the experience of I am, that I am, because you are that you are. So that is just my little spiel for today. It's been on my heart since it's February, Black History Month. I figured I'd get into it a little bit and just share some thoughts. Feel free to drop your comments. Feel free to drop questions. Feel free to drop hate if you need to. But no, I'm always coming from a loving place. These are just thoughts off the top of my head. And I will be back with the next one. Peace.